All righty. Well, I'm really excited to have Rubí Sanchez here, CEO of Wearless Tech, talking to us about the Internet of Things. My name is Del Medina. I am the co-founder and CEO of Avion Ventures. We are a pre-accelerator program specifically for Latinas, and this is part of our campaign to highlight and to have people understand some terms around tech and the opportunity out there. So, but before I get started, I really want to go a little bit into Rubí's background because I think it's really fascinating. I should also add, on a personal note, I absolutely adore Rubí. From the moment I met her until now, she has been fearless and diligent in growing her company. She is deeply passionate about utilizing technology to bridge gaps in healthcare. It is this drive to build patient-centered services and products that has led her to co-found Wearless Tech. Wearless Tech is an early-stage, high-tech company focused on developing a smart camera that detects skin temperature, heart rate, and respiration rate from video streams. In 2014, Rubí and her team earned the Most Practical Solution Award for her company's first product, Cocoon Cam, at the MedHack here in San Francisco. She is a UC Berkeley alumni who thrives on the intersection of innovation, strategy, technology, and data-driven decision-making, making to lead to big initiatives from fruition to goal. So thank you so much, Rubí, for joining us. Please, let's start a little bit with what is Cocoon Cam and how does it work?
Okay, so you talked a little bit about it, but Cocoon Cam is essentially the first baby monitor that is able to tell you about the wellness of your baby. And the way that we're able to do so is by detecting heart rate, respiration, and skin temperature at a distance from a video camera. So just imagine any, video camera that you buy at Toys R Us, but instead of it just giving you the video, it's able to give you a lot more insight and information on how your baby is doing, so that when your baby is sleeping, you don't have to go upstairs and poke your baby to tell that your baby is okay. You can actually look at your smartphone application from wherever you are, and you're able to tell, okay, Juanita is breathing, and it looks like her temperature is fine. So now I can relax. And essentially, what we want to do is transition parents into parenthood, especially new parents, right? They get very anxious, and we want to be able to help them with that, and be able to also help them with the caring of their baby, ensuring that their baby is safe and well. And so, yeah, a lot of people ask about the technology and what is the magic, right, behind Cocoon Cam. It's pretty cool. My co-founder, Pavan, he actually used to work with surveillance monitors, and he was able to track a person of interest from camera to camera. And so that is called computer vision, right? Being able to detect things and objects or people using computer, right? And the hardware and software behind it. And so what he's able to do, he's actually able to magnify the motion, right? So you can't, when you're looking at your video camera, and you're staring at the screen to try to see if your baby is breathing, you can't really do so because there's just not enough integrity in that video stream for you to be able to detect that. But what he's able to do, he's actually able to magnify that movement so that he's able to see your baby breathing. And so then he's able to quantify that and ensure you that, yes, your baby is breathing, and these are the patterns. And so as for skin temperature, you can't see this with the naked eye, but every time that blood passes through your face actually gets darker. And so what we do is we then also amplify that, and we're able to see things that you can't normally see with the naked eye. And so by quantifying that, we're able to detect what your heart rate is. And the way that we're able to detect skin temperature is, besides using a normal off-the-shelf camera, we also use a special IR sensor. And so by using video body recognition and the special IR sensor, we're actually able to tell what your skin temperature is.
Wow, that's amazing. So before we get into defining this idea of Internet of Things, tell me a little bit about the hardware space, because it's a space that's sexy, but it's difficult. It's also not a place where you see a lot of Latinos that are doing stuff, but I think that there's a lot of potential, and one of the reasons I love what you guys are building is because I realize the need for a product like that. So tell me a little bit about the hardware space. What does it look like?
Right. So the hardware space is a little bit tough right now because it requires a lot more funding in order for you to get to market, because then you have to start thinking about what is your go-to-market strategy. How are you going to get these to the Costco's of the world? So try to put yourself in like Fitbit's shoes. Before Fitbit was Fitbit, nobody knew about them. So there's a lot of cost and marketing involved in you now knowing what Fitbit is, what they do, and then you can go to Costco and you can purchase that. So that is one of the particular challenges. But there's also, on the other hand, a lot of opportunity for data with the Internet of Things. So to give a little brief background, Internet of Things is an object that is connected to the Internet. And because it's connected to the Internet and has its own IP address, then whatever information that object is getting can also be quantified as data, right? And if you have all of this data, then you're able to find out more things about activities and how people move around the world that you wouldn't be able to know otherwise, because it wasn't connected to the internet, and these companies were not able to quantify all these data. And so the biggest verticals that are currently going on in the Internet of Things are healthcare, right? Medical devices, network, think Nest, being able to tell the temperature and humidity. But really the main reason that we wanted to do this baby monitor is because, yes, the Internet of Things space is really big, but there's not really that much activity in protecting the things that actually matter the most to people, which is their family members, their babies.
So give me a list of some things that are Internet of Things possible that are coming down the pike.
A list of things. So one big example, right, is Nest. Nest is it's able to tell the temperature, right, of your house, and because it's able to track all of this data on how you use the temperature sensor and how you, like, maybe you put it up to like 80 degrees on certain days of the year, and they know exactly where you live. Then what they're able to do is they're able to do some data analysis behind it. And then they're able to save you money in return, so that you actually save a lot more money than what you spent on that object.
Great. I think another great example is some of the new cars that are coming out that have that are wireless, and that you're able to get on them, and you'll be able to tell who and how the car is driven. One of the things I recently, looking up things to talk to you about, is refrigerators. Like, wow, you can tell what's in the refrigerator, what has gone spoiled, what is about to go spoiled, what are the patterns around certain foods that you eat, and I find that to be fascinating. So as more and more of our information is up there, like, what's the possibilities for you to live in a more seamless way? So having said that, besides your own product, is there a product that you can recommend to people to play around with this idea?
So the idea of the Internet of Things, I would actually recommend that instead of purchasing a product, for them to experiment with actually building something in the Internet of Things space. It can seem a little bit scary, but like, for example, in one of our first prototypes iterations, we have the Raspberry Pi, right? And so the Raspberry Pi is pretty much like this mini computer you can purchase on the internet, and it sort of allows you to play around with this concept of the Internet of Things connected to the internet and be able to see what you can do with that. So I'd actually recommend that people purchase an Arduino or a Raspberry Pi or, you know, anything similar for them to just start to get their hands in there and try to learn a little bit more of the Internet of Things by actually doing it and going through it.
That's great. I think that's a great idea, actually, to actually go out and play with something, not just be a passive consumer. Actually making this a hobby is a great idea. I love that. So let's talk a little bit about where you are at with Wearless Tech and your product Cocoon Cam. You know, what phase of product development are you in? Tell us, you know, when can I buy one?
So we are actually taking pre-orders right now as we speak on our website, which is www.cocooncam.com. And we're also really excited to be working with the University of California, San Diego on a study that has been approved. And we're also currently exploring a possible partnership with Stanford Lucile Packard Children's Hospital to do another study or clinical trials with them. Because our long-term vision is actually to impact the healthcare industry. And to be able to bridge this this gap in communication between parents and pediatricians. There seems to be a lot of ER visits by special parents when babies get a fever that could be accommodated better by improving this channel of communication between the parent and the pediatrician. So in order for us to do that, we'd have to explore FDA. But currently, as a consumer product, we're definitely ready to start taking some pre-orders, and I'm hoping to launch on a crowdfunding campaign within the next couple of months.
Oh, fantastic. And what is the price point that you're looking at for people to be able to go out there and buy them for, for the baby showers, for the sobrinos y los primos?
So currently, we're looking at selling Cocoon Cam at $299. And just look out in the future. There might be a small discount for the first couple of consumers that would like to try out Cocoon Cam and give us their feedback.
And going back to this idea of the Internet of Things and what it is and how it works, it is both the device and it is software. Can you talk to me a little bit about how that relationship is and what is it that you were in particular trying to build around Cocoon Cam?
Right. So if you get down to it, what we're actually building are these really cool algorithms, right? So this software that runs inside the device and that runs on the cloud. And so what the hardware does, it's sort of the avenue with which we're able to get this data. So we need to be able to see these video streams to detect the heart rate, to detect the respiration, right? And from there, we grab those video streams and we take it through this little black box, which is the algorithms. And so the same thing with the IR temperature. The IR temperature gives us information about what's going on with the surroundings. And then we use the black box to say like, hey, Deldel's right in front of you. She's right there. What's her temperature? And then goes back and spits it out to us.
Yeah. And from the consumer point of view, how would you get that information? Like, what's the software going to be like?
Right. So from the consumer point of view, what you're really using is this cell phone application, right? So it's going to be a very beautiful phone application that you log in. And so essentially what we've learned that parents really want to know is just a yes or no question. Is my baby breathing? Is my baby okay? And to be able to physically see what their baby is up to give them that sense of relief. So what we want to do is create a very simple and intuitive phone application with which parents are immediately able to tell these things, that their baby is safe and well.
Great, that's wonderful. I'm really excited. I'm going to buy one. So let's talk a little bit about, now that we understand what the Internet of Things is and what the opportunities are, what are some of the challenges actually that you see in terms of building your product and pushing it out?
Right. So one of the biggest challenges is, again, getting your product to market, right? Getting people to know what Cocoon Cam is. In order for us to do that, we have to have a really good go-to-market strategy. So this involves getting the right distribution channels, right? So initially, we're going to sell Cocoon Cam on our website, and there might be some marketing campaigns online. But in order for us to get it to the big box stores, we're going to have to create some partnerships with these distributors that will take Cocoon Cam and then bring them on to big box, so that when you go to the Costco, you're able to see Cocoon Cam there.
Great. So what you just told me is if anybody's watching this video and they have a relationship with Costco, they should get a hold of you because you want to sell on Costco. And frankly, I want you to sell on Costco. So as we're wrapping up here, I really want, going back to one of the reasons I love you, is that from a year ago that we met until now, I have seen how step by step you've gotten to this point. And that means to me that there's a process and a methodology to be able to go from winning a hackathon to actually creating a company to demoing a product. Tell us a little bit about your methodologies and process for you and your team.
Right. So initially, when we won the hackathon, it was really about creating this proof of concept around the technology. It just seemed kind of crazy, like to be able to detect heart rate, respiration, skin temperature from a video. And so the first question is, can we do this? Is this actually possible? And so when we went to the MedHack, that's when we built that first proof of concept for the temperature. So yes, okay, it looks like we can detect skin temperature. So after that, it was really about finishing the whole proof of concept for each technology and then focusing on integrating everything together. So this is, for example, if you want to build something that might be a little bit more on the innovative side. But once you're able to build this proof of concept and it's integrated, then it's about building the enclosure, right? For us, it's really sexy to see this Raspberry Pi, right? But if you put it in front of someone, they're gonna be like, oh, that's ugly. It's just some hardware, and I don't know what that is. Put some clothes on it, which we actually heard from someone. And so that's exactly what we did. So it's really hearing a lot of advice, asking for a lot of advice, and really taking it into consideration. Because without that, we would have probably still not had the clothes on Cocoon Cam. And so that's what led us to then build the enclosure. Even if it's really simple, that was actually another challenge that I should have brought up. But a challenge, the previous challenge actually was building the enclosure. So you used to have to get this mass manufactured and get injected molds, and that would cost a lot of money, huge barrier to entry. But now you have these 3D printers, right? These 3D printers that are able to print your enclosure, and then sometimes if you create a really good design, you can just snap it together, and there, your hardware has clothing. So after you build this prototype, then it's really about focusing and pivoting to looking at how do you build that minimum viable product. So what is that minimum thing that people are going to want to use? So for us, that meant building that phone application, having people look at it, seeing how they use it, and then seeing whether it's actually valuable to them. And if it's not, then it's okay because you're at least learning something. So a lot of customer development, actually customer discovery is probably the biggest key thing. It's building something that people actually want to use. So if you have an idea, just go out and ask the people that you think will buy this idea. And sometimes it turns out that your baby is ugly. They don't like what you're selling. And so that's okay because you just save yourself a ton of time. You just retweak the idea and you get back at it.
Yeah, that's a great point. So, I think you brought up this really interesting point that I think which is where people get stuck, right? Like you have this grander vision. It's obvious that you love the work that you're doing and what you're doing, right? So you have a grander vision of how you see technology playing out and the answers to questions that we currently have it's going to be able to bring, right? Having said that, from going from idea to actual finished product that's on a shelf at Costco, it is a whole process. And along that line, people are going to be saying all sorts of things to you. What has been kind of your filtering mechanism to be able to listen to some and know that some things that people are telling you are not quite right? Like, what does that look like?
I think what it really looks like is I guess the analytics part of me calls them data points, where you have this hypothesis. I think parents will want this monitor that has heart rate on it. And then when I went out and I spoke to parents, then it turns out they actually want respiration and skin temperature more. So it's trying to use the scientific method with it. Like, how many data points can you get with this point that say yes versus no? And so, yes, the toughest part is getting advice from different directions. And really the key thing is to actually listen, but also to filter it. And at the end of the day, it's really your gut feeling and coming back to your team and asking them for their opinion as well. Because at the end of the day, it's really a team effort. And if one of you guys is not aligned, then it's really easy for a team to fall apart, I think.
No, I think that's a great point. So as we're wrapping up, I was wondering, what advice do you have for people that want to be newbies in the space, both hardware and Internet of Things? What kind of resources would you recommend?
I would strongly recommend that they go to hackathons or startup weekends. So like, even if you're not a technical person, but you have maybe a background in product development or business, or you're just interested in the area, then I strongly recommend that you go to those events where you'll meet everyone else that is interested in also starting something new and being creative and trying it out. So for those that are not familiar with it, usually for a startup weekend, you go on a Friday and you just meet a lot of amazing people. If you want, you pitch your own idea, right? And usually there's one specifically for makers, which is hardware. That's actually how I met my co-founder, Siva, really cool guy. And so then you work with this team and you work on the concept. And on Saturday, you go out, you do your customer development, you come back, you collaborate with your team, and on a Sunday, you pitch the idea. So that's a really good experience to see if this is something that you're really interested in, because it is going to be just like that startup weekend, a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of collaboration and trying to figure out where you fit in. But at the end of the day, you might end up loving it.
Wow, that's great. So what other resources do you think in terms of, because I think this is a place where people get stuck sometimes of, wow, hardware is expensive. What would you say to somebody who's like, I think I have this great idea and I have this technology, but this is a really expensive thing. I don't know if I'm going to have the money to be able to build it.
Right. So I would say that you should start looking at, again, items like the Raspberry Pi or the Arduino. They're really small computers that you can play around with. And you can start with something small, like being able to connect it to your light and being able to switch it on and off with your cell phone. And there are also a lot of meetups that would be able to help you do this. So if anything, it would also be trying to look for someone else that's interested in doing the same thing. It's really hard if it's a solo effort, but if you find someone that you can connect with and that is able to work with hardware already, they might be able to want to mentor you, or even better yet, join your team. Like that would be really great, because sometimes it can be tough to do things alone. But if you're new to the hardware space and you're really interested, I definitely recommend that you get that Raspberry Pi, you go to a meetup group, or you go to Startup Weekend for Makers, and you start building your own hardware community.
Yeah, because let's make this clear. You don't come educationally from a hardware space. It's not like you went out and studied this stuff, right? So this is, you've educated yourself in the process of making Wearless Tech, right? So talk to me about the mindset that you've had from the get-go when you were like, this is something I'm interested in and I'm going to figure out how to do this.
Right. So I think it just comes from a perspective of always wanting to learn. So when I went to that Startup Weekend for Makers, I went there specifically to learn more about hardware. Like I had only gone to one class about it was about the Arduino. I think it was a meetup as well the week before, just to kind of get an idea of the possibilities. And then I pushed myself and I said, like, well, hey, if I'm going to come, I'm going to see if I can pitch an idea. So I pitched an idea as well. And then after that, it was really about continuing that process of learning from our designer, learning from Siva, and then when I found the team and Pavan came on board, learning from him. So like there's so many things that I can talk about today that I probably wouldn't have been able to talk about a year before. And the biggest element that helped me do that was just the willingness to learn and to be very, very curious about what's going on, so that I can then have conversations, like more meaningful conversations with my team. Which I'd also like to thank, because they're also really patient with me, so that's something else. They're patient, they have enough patience to explain things to me, and so then I ask them more questions. And so that's how I learn more, but at the same time, they learn more from me about the customers and what it is that they want. So a lot of giving collaboration.
No, and I think that's a great point. So what is it that you bring to the table as a CEO, not coming from the hardware space in terms of a formal education, more like self-education? What is it that you are doing? Where is it that your formal education fits in?
Right. So my background, I studied interdisciplinary studies at Berkeley. I think just in general, I've always wanted to learn a little bit of everything, how everything works together as a system. So I studied a little bit of business, healthcare, and also international law. And then I wrote this thesis on healthcare and how it's financed, how it affects actual healthcare outcome. But my real interest in tech came when I went and worked in healthcare, and I helped implement health information technology, informatics, and then also changing workflows. So that's where my passion for healthcare comes in. And then when I came onto Cocoon Cam, it was really being the hustler, right? Like, what do we have to do next? Let's find out who knows this, who's the person that's already done this, and sort of doing the same thing that I've pretty much always done wherever I work, which is just figuring out what the next step is. I kind of call it like driving through the fog, where you kind of know exactly what's next, but you don't really know what's, you know, maybe a couple of feet ahead of that. And really being resourceful, right? So like, what is a term sheet? Let's go figure it out. Let's go ask Del what that is. What is, you know, what is this slide deck that you're talking about? Everyone's using these decks. What is that? Go to like an event. I think I went to see like Guy Kawasaki, and he gave some tips on how to create a 10-slide deck. A lot of it you can't actually take from the corporate world, because these are just skills that they don't teach you. Like customer discovery, usually people tell you what to build. They don't tell you to figure out if it's actually going to be useful to someone, right? You're sort of doing this small thing in this big place. So it's really like starting from scratch. And then I had a previous experience at a small business, so like thinking a lot about analytics and about the financial impact and the business side, learning more about that. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's just being that hustler in the team. And it's the same thing for them. Like they have a very interdisciplinary background in technology, like iOS development. If we need to learn it, they'll learn it, right? Hardware, if there's something that we don't know, they'll learn it as well. So I think it's that huge team effort and everyone's willingness to wear different hats. And if you don't know how to make that hat, to learn what that hat looks like and then wear it, that really makes everything work.
Great. So last question. Which is, where do you see the Internet of Things going 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What do you think is going to look like? From everything I've read, it says pretty much everything is going to become wired in some way, shape, or form. But how are those systems going to work together, and where are the sticking points in terms of privacy and opportunity that people are going to be kind of like trying to figure out?
Right. So I think that there's a lot of room for a lot of, like you said, the refrigerator, right? The Internet of Things refrigerator can pretty much have an Internet of Things almost anything. Like you put it in your closet and it somehow can tell what day it is, and I don't know, like what color you should wear and exactly what outfit you should wear. Like just the other day I saw this mirror where you just stand in front of it and it's able to tell you what you'd look like in a certain outfit in the store, and I thought that was interesting. So you'll slowly see a lot of different things beginning to grab the internet, like the smart lock, right? Just being able to open the door for someone when you're not even home. And I'd encourage people to think of more ideas, because those ideas maybe have not been thought of, and they might end up making a future IoT thing. But in general, a lot more objects that are going to be internet-based. Definitely a lot of issues with security, so there's probably going to be a lot more investment in that area. How to keep these Internet of Things secure. Just the other day I heard of a mother whose video camera was hacked by someone else, and so they were able to see into her baby's room. So that's a huge concern, and that's something that we're going to focus on, is making sure that it's very secure. But other than that, the data aspects. Data analytics is just going to be huge, because all of these Internet of Things are going to generate so much data, and someone's going to have to look at this data. So if you want to be a future data engineer, data scientist, there's a huge opportunity for you in the future.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Rubí. I'm really been super pleased to see how you've grown your company and the things that you're doing and how you're going to get on to the next thing. And I look forward to buying Cocoon Cam. You know, because that's the other thing. You're selling this as a baby monitor, but the reality is that this is a monitor for anybody. So if you have somebody that's older in your family, a dog, any sort of, you know, someone that needs taking care of, I think like that's the application. That's the way I would use it. But I really want to thank you for doing this. Once again, this has been Rubí Sanchez, CEO of Wearless Tech, talking about the Internet of Things as part of our Avion Tech series. My name is Del Medina. I am the CEO and co-founder of Avion Ventures, and we are a pre-accelerator for Latinas in the tech space. And so from two Latinas that are in the tech space, we say thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to having the next conversation with Liliana Aide Monge, talking about the opportunity in learning how to code. All right, talk to you soon. Thank you, Rubí.
Thanks, Del.
Cuídate.
You too.